Good morning. This is Acting Mayor Jim Walsh coming to you from the studios of WGET here at Gardner High School for a update on various aspects of the local response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, just before 10 a.m. And this morning we have with us, as I say, we wanted to provide you with an update from a public safety and public emergency preparedness point of view, what's going on here in the city. I have with me here this morning the Chief of Police for the Gardner Police Department, Richard Brax. He's going to comment on the local public safety aspects of his work and the department's work. And we also have with us Paul Topolski, who is the Director of Emergency Preparedness here in the city, and also is our local liaison with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, and the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, also known as MEMA. So to get started, and then when we're done, I'll have a few comments and updates at the local level, what we're doing out of City Hall. So to get started, I'm going to introduce Chief Brax, who will have his comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Walsh. And for you watching, remember one thing. We are all in this here together. We work here, we live here, our family's here, our friends are here. And I would like to start by introducing some of our front line that are at the police department. Our emergency management, our emergency dispatchers that answer your calls, our officers, our civilian staff, Ray Beauregard, who does maintenance, which is very critical at these times inside our building, our animal control, and our emergency management director, Paul Topolski, are all inside the building doing what we do all year round, ensuring the safety of the city. In the city, of course, we work with the fire department and the emergency EMS personnel, acting mayor and the mayor's administrative assistant, Rachel Stefano, in City Hall, Board of Health Director Lawrence Saunders and her staff, Deb Pond in Human Resources, who at this time is, they're all in the building, along with a lot of other departments, doing what we need to do to remain in position to ensure the city's working properly. On March 10th, Massachusetts declared a state of emergency. That state of emergency declared that the administration had more flexibility to respond to the COVID virus outbreak. On March 23rd, the Baker-Polito administration added the non-essential business order, requiring non-essential businesses to close. And this was a very difficult order at all levels. This order ensured that we determined who was going to open and who was not going to be open. And this has been extended to May 4th. The governor did a nice job explaining what was considered essential, and there's a large list of essential businesses and personnel that's on the mass.gov website. In the city government follows this directive. On March 24th, under Governor Baker's direction, the Department of Public Health issued a stay-at-home advisory. The stay-at-home advisory outlines distancing protocols and self-isolation. That will also continue to May 4th, and that means that no unnecessary public activities to occur, such as group functions, group sports, meetings, non-essential travel, or medical appointments. The unnecessary travel has reduced public transportation and destination traveling. This has resulted in closing of parks and beaches throughout the Commonwealth. The advisory states you can go for basic food items and health items, and there's a provision for workers who are supporting the essential services, such as trucking and delivery, grocery store personnel, and other listed essential business personnel that are on that list. The advisory encourages go outside and get some fresh air, but remember that 6-foot protocol that they gave to you, because that is one of the top things that they've been telling you to keep you safe. Of great importance, check on family and friends and your neighbors, but use your phone, email or text. Don't meet in person. Just because you feel that you're all right doesn't mean that the virus isn't passing along. Check on someone. That's been proven to be most beneficial, particularly for the emotional health of people while they're home and doing the right thing and not having as much contact as they once had. The governor's order prohibiting assembly and on-site consumption, which originally was issued on March 15th, had been revised on the 31st of March to prohibit no more than 10 people to assemble in any one place in public. That included the Department of Public Health's guidance for issuing violations. They saw that they needed some more effort to ensure that these things were being followed, and first offense would be a warning. The second offense would be a $300 fine, and the third or subsequent offenses would be a $500 fine or prison or both. And they have that on the www.mass.gov website. There are concerns that have arisen since the pandemic, particularly the news reporting people not abiding by the physical distancing rule of 6 feet. That's very concerning, because time and time again, people have talked about how to take and ensure your own safety or safety of others, and that 6-foot rule is really important. It has been emphasized time and time again. People are not taking into account the safety of others because they feel fine. They don't feel that they have the virus, and so that the distances are getting closer than that 6 feet. They just can't emphasize that enough. Locally, one of the things that has been happening is there's a increase in seeing gloves that are being used at shopping centers and in parking lots and along roadsides that people are using appropriately, but discarding inappropriately. They should be brought home and discarded. Take the gloves off, one using the other, and don't touch the outside of the glove. You should discard them in an appropriate place and not throughout our community. We're not we did post at the parks, not allowing to use equipment at the parks, and that's so we don't have accidental transmission of virus. We can't be assured that the virus isn't on this equipment after it's been used, and we just can't take the chance that people would be able to, transmit the disease that way. They also encourage you to use something when you're pumping gas. It's something that everybody does when they're traveling and they're out every day. Put something on your hand that may be able to be discarded when you're pumping gas, because the person before you don't know who that is, and you never know what the situation is with another person. So that's another thing that came out to safeguard us all. The Gardner Police Department, as always, is one of your frontline agencies, particularly in times like this. I want to assure you that the department remains fully operational, though we are taking into account modifications to, ensure everybody's safety. You may be asked to wear a mask if we speak to you in person or in our lobby. We may be wearing a mask as well, depending on what the situation is. For the time being, officers will be calling you by phone if we can appropriately do the investigation or take a report in that manner. Doing a telephone call obviously reduces that face-to-face contact for both of us. And if we see something risky out in the community, we may be the individuals that come to, talk to you about it. We just want to educate you about that DPH advisory that came out. At this time, I'm very fortunate to have a very highly dedicated group of officers and civilian staff that work at the Gardner Police Department. And they're all there. They're all coming to work. They're all there to ensure that, we're functioning properly, and the safety that we provide all year round is here at this time, particularly when things are a little unsure. Governor Baker has repeatedly stated, everyone in Massachusetts has an important role to play to slow the transmission of this virus. And every instance of potential exposure can be eliminated is an important step for each individual to protect ourselves, our families, and our community. So please be aware, stay safe. Thank you. And I'd like to have the Emergency Management Director, Paul Topolski, speak.
Thank you, Chief Brax, and thank you, Acting Mayor Walsh. I'm Paul Topolski, the City of Gardner Emergency Management Director, and my function throughout the city and under normal circumstances is to be sure that we have sufficient resources planned for emergencies such as this, or weather emergencies, or what have you. In this particular case, the primary thing that we're doing at emergency management is being sure that we have sufficient supplies on hand for our first responders, personal protection equipment, so that they can stay safe. If our first responders are not able to stay on the job, then it becomes even more difficult for the citizens of the community to get the help that they need, and for us to respond in an appropriate manner and an appropriate amount of time. So we are meeting via conference call 3 times a week to be sure that everybody's stock is known, to be sure that we have sufficient orders in with delivery dates, and that we are backed up by the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency for equipment that we are not able to obtain in a timely manner. As you can imagine, the rest of the state is also in the same boat, and so Mass Emergency Management has to be very diligent about how much equipment that they let out. So this just-in-time delivery system that we've established in conjunction with the incident command system, which is a way of doing business in emergency management. Those systems are in place and they're currently active. I would like to take a minute to talk about disaster preparedness on the home front. It's exceedingly important that we all have sufficient supplies on hand for a 72-hour period. But you can see in this particular case, we need to go much beyond that. So for future disasters and emergencies, it's a great idea to be able to have supplies on hand, particularly food, water, and so forth. And one final note is that we do really need to keep in mind of the financial disasters that we're looking at right now, and how important it is for everyone to have a rainy day fund, so to speak, to weather them through this emergency. It's exceedingly difficult to do that in the economies that we've had in the past. However, once we recover from this, I would encourage everyone to establish those funds and keep them on hand so that we're not suffering as badly as we are economically right now, and people can survive. Okay, that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. A couple of updates from City Hall. All departments remain operational. We have reduced our staff. We have reduced the hours that the staff is at City Hall, but every department is open, every department is operational. And we've instituted alternating days for some of the staff, and established the protocol for distancing as described by the chief that's so important to maintain the safety of the public and of the staff. But we do remain operational on at all departments. There are some changes, however. The Board of Health at its a recent meeting has voted to, effective yesterday, to close the transfer station until April 15th. That was their decision to ensure the safety of the staff over there at the transfer station. They will be reassessing that prior to April 15th, and we'll be making a decision about ongoing operations at that time. The Gardner Housing Authority has announced that although it remains operational, it is closed to the public, and it can be reached by email, regular mail, or by telephone at 978-632-6627. One thing that I know is of interest to the public at large is the status of the special election that was scheduled for a preliminary vote a week from today and a final vote on May 5th. By virtue of a special legislation that was passed recently by the House and the Senate and signed by the governor, and in consideration of the risks associated with conducting an election under the current pandemic circumstances, the City Council on Monday, earlier this week on Monday evening at a special meeting, voted to postpone those two elections, the preliminary and the final. They will be rescheduled at a later date. The special legislation that I mentioned also authorizes a new method for these elections that will make it permissible for people to vote early by mail. Once the new dates are established that need to be 4 weeks apart and need to be, the last of which needs to be conducted on or before June 30th, once those dates are set by the City Council, the city clerk who conducts elections will be sending out a notice of the new dates, and with that notice of the new dates, an application will be contained with it for an early voting ballot. That application needs to be signed, needs to be submitted to the clerk by the earliest of on or before the day before the election date, and a ballot will be provided, and a return envelope provided by return mail to that person who requested. This mailing will go out to every registered voter in the city, so that everybody will have an opportunity to vote in the special elections, the preliminary and the final, and they'll be able to do it early and by mail in order to maximize the safety of the process and to minimize the exposure that election workers experience at the polls. So please stay tuned for the new dates and keep an eye out for the early ballot application that will be coming in the mail once those dates are set. As I mentioned, all other operations of the city remain intact and functioning, and I want to thank all the dedicated, hardworking, and professional people who are manning and womaning the departments on a day-to-day basis. They are dedicated people, they are hardworking, and they are true public servants. I want to thank all of them for their work. So with that, we'll conclude today's update, and I want to thank Chief Brax as well as Paul Topolski for their contributions to this morning's presentation. Thank you again. Please stay safe, be smart. Thanks.